The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Food fights, elephants, giraffes, and Macaulay Culkin. Well, if you're home alone at Neverland, it may turn into an animal house. No, you sometimes just can't help those movie references. I'm James Curtis. This is a special one-hour edition of our exclusive coverage of the Michael Jackson trial. It was mostly clear skies with ominous clouds on the horizon as Hollywood TV weatherman Fritz Coleman took the stand in this increasingly bizarre case. Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin asked Coleman about his relationship with the accuser's family. Here's what happened in the courtroom, according to the transcripts.
Sir, what is your current occupation?
I'm a weather forecaster at Channel 4, the local NBC station in Los Angeles.
And how long have you held that position?
23 years.
Prior to that, did you have other television experience?
Minor television experience. I was in the stand-up comedy business before that, actually.
Do you know Jamie Masada?
Yes, I do.
Do you know the business that he runs?
Yes, I do.
And what business is that?
Owner of the Laugh Factory, a comedy club in Hollywood.
And tell us what the Laugh Factory is. What do they do?
The Laugh Factory is a comedy nightclub that has 1 to 2 shows per night every week, where a cavalcade of 5 to 6 comedians perform every night.
Have you ever performed there?
Yes, I have.
Do they have a camp, a summer camp, that they run out of the Laugh Factory?
Yes, they do.
Have you ever worked with that summer camp with the children who go there?
Yes, I did.
And the type of children who go there, they're from where?
Underprivileged children, at-risk children, group homes, poor families.
How long has that summer camp existed?
I don't know the answer to that. I think 5 or 6, 7 years, maybe.
All right. Did you ever have an opportunity to meet any of the children in the family?
Yes, I did. I was invited, as were many of the comedians that performed at the Laugh Factory, to be a guest teacher for one day on one Saturday. And the Saturday that I taught there, I met all 3 of the children.
Can you tell us their names? Do you recall their names?
Gavin, Star, and Davelin.
Were either of their parents, a mother or father, present at the time that you met them?
The mother came to pick them up at the end of the day. That was my brief encounter with her.
And do you remember her name?
I don't know, I'm sorry to say.
And did the children perform during that day?
Yes, they did.
Did you work with them during that day?
Yes, I did.
And how did you find them at that time?
I found them personable and polite and charismatic.
And do you remember how long ago that was?
I would say 1999.
At some time, did you learn that one of the 3 children became afflicted with cancer?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was, the year that it was?
I think it was 2000, because after my tenure as the teacher there, I lost touch with the family until a group of people just sort of began to discuss that Gavin was in Kaiser with cancer.
Well, this weatherman certainly knows that it rarely snows in L.A., but he still takes the opportunity to play Santa Claus.
All right. At some point in time, did you have an occasion to visit their home, the family home?
Yes, I did. Once, the Christmas after the summer when I was the instructor there. My good friend Louise Palenker and I decided that we would, for lack of a better term, adopt this family for Christmas. They were, to our learning, in dire financial straits, and I had 2 young sons who were 12 and 10 at the time and wanted to seize an opportunity to do something nice for a family and sort of bring them along the process, just to help them appreciate more what they had in their own lives. So my friend Louise and I went to Best Buy and bought several $100s worth of Christmas gifts, video game equipment, movies, and wrapped them. And then my sons and I and Louise took them down to their home in East L.A., and I was in their home for a total of 20 minutes just to drop the gifts off and get hugs from the kids, and we were out of there.
Did anybody from the family solicit those gifts?
No.
Did they ask you in advance?
No.
Did you, in fact, go to their house and go into their apartment?
Yes, I did.
Do you have a recollection of what the apartment looked like?
Yes, it was very small, very clean, and I remember that the room was partitioned with sheets because there were, with 3 children and the 2 adults, 5 people living in a very small space. I was just stricken with how small it was.
And the small space you're describing, was it more than 1 room?
I didn't take a tour of the home. It seemed like it was one room. Again, partitioned by these sheets that they had set up to sort of divide the areas of the room.
When you were there, did you have any conversation with any of the members of the family?
Yes, the people who were there. I'm not actually sure if the father was there, but I remember the mother being there and the 3 children, and it was really a very brief encounter for 15 to 20 minutes.
Would you describe the mother's reaction to your bringing the gifts?
Very thankful. The children, very thankful. I got the feeling that this might have been the only Christmas they were going to have. It just seemed like it was the right thing to do. And perhaps it was. It saved Christmas for them. Well, that was my feeling. They never expressed that, but it was my feeling.
Come on, are you kidding me?
James.
I want the prosecution to do well. If Michael Jackson is good for this crime, he needs to go away. But this is disgusting.
It's not disgusting.
It is.
Well, where's the defense lawyer then objecting if it's so disgusting?
I don't know. That's
Where's
a
the
good
defense
question.
lawyer?
Myself. Let me say this. There's no doubt, I think the jury will find Fritz Coleman is a nice guy.
Yes.
Except, of course, it has nothing to do with the case.
Let me be clear, Jen, lest I offend everyone out there watching this broadcast. What's disgusting about this testimony, what's offensive to me, is this gushing. We saved Christmas for them, and if I had the feeling that they wouldn't have had a Christmas if it wasn't for... Come on,
Well, first of all, let me say this. In the times that I have met Fritz Coleman, I have really liked him. He is this kind of a guy.
He's a wonderful
This was a
man.
meaningful thing to him. This is a meaningful experience, his relationship with his family, living in this one room where he does bring them Christmas. The reason it's relevant is because Tom Mesereau and his defense are trying to show this family out to be grifters. What Fritz Coleman shows for the prosecution is that he volunteered all of this. Nobody asked him
So they
this.
didn't grift Fritz Coleman. That's all that means.
exactly
That's all
right.
that happened.
Or did they? Or did they?
Well, yes,
Suddenly
in
the defense
some
come back
ways
and
they
say,
did.
hey, they just got you. They brought you in. Currently the best if the defense
please,
is right.
The kid is
no.
dying of
Well,
cancer at
I
that point.
understand that, but Ricky, and I'm just saying, as a point of defense tactic, wouldn't it be, Howard, the useful point to try to make, and we're going to see what happens on the cross, to say, look, the best con is one where you don't even know you've been conned.
Well, the best tactic would have been to object to this testimony. I don't think it has any relevance. I really don't, except to show that Fritz has a big heart.
Then why didn't Tom Mesereau, defense attorney extraordinaire, get on his feet? Well, next, Coleman paints a sad and sympathetic picture of the accuser's family situation.
All right. When was the next time that you had an opportunity to visit with any member of the family? Do you recall?
Having learned that Gavin had cancer, I don't remember which of the siblings was at the hospital, but the next time I saw him was he and his dad at the hospital.
What was Gavin's condition at the time you saw him?
Very ill.
How did he appear to you?
He appeared very drawn and pale, and this was in the darkest days of his diagnosis when they weren't sure if he was going to make it. And he was very sick to his stomach, and it was very hard to watch.
All right. How many times do you believe you visited him at the hospital?
Several, I would say, between 3 and 5, if my memory serves me.
During the period of time that he was ill, were you involved in any fundraising efforts on behalf of either the family or Gavin specifically?
Yes, I was. The Laugh Factory decided they wanted to do a fundraiser for this family. It was apparent to us that they needed the money because David was not working. He was staying every night at the hospital with Gavin, and so we thought it would be a good idea. I'm not exactly certain where this idea came from. I'm assuming it was Jamie Masada because he did those things all the time, charity events at the club.
Did Gavin's mother involve herself in any way with you in efforts to arrange solicitation for his charitable donations?
Not with me, no.
Did she ever have a conversation with you at all about that?
No.
Did you have a conversation with any member of the family for that?
No, my relationship for that fundraiser was totally with Jamie Masada. It was he spearheaded the evening, and I was just sort of doing what he suggested.
All right, Sean, let's you and I take a moment here. This area, as I said a couple of days ago, I traveled to Santa Maria, and it's a farming area. As I drove up the freeway, up the 101, you see farm workers stooping over in the fields. And maybe it's just me, and if it is, I know you'll let me know. Does this testimony come off a little elitist? Oh, this poor family, they wouldn't have a Christmas. I am the knight in white shining armor and coming in to save the day.
Maybe I hadn't thought of that. I actually thought of something else you said the other day. You were accusing, I think, the defense of bringing in celebrities in this rural area just for the sake of bringing celebrities in. This looks like that to me because Fritz Coleman is offering nothing here of any relevance. He's just a star, and I don't know if in Santa Barbara and Santa Maria they get Fritz Coleman as the weatherman, but he's a little, you know, celebrity power, and he offers nothing except the sympathy
I wouldn't go to the
factor.
nothing. Let me go back over to the prosecution side where I am most comfortable and say, Howard, with respect to this issue, it is vitally important that this testimony come out with respect to the mother did not solicit this show of gratuity, if you will.
This is character evidence. I've actually not seen this, to the best of my recollection, in 35-plus years, where the prosecution feels compelled to offer character evidence to say, my people are really okay.
Well, no, come on, that's not fair. That's not fair. Go ahead.
That's what it is.
But there's more to it, though, because what comes out in this testimony is the fact that Fritz Coleman says the person who was raising the money was the father, not the mother. That contacts about getting money and bringing money to the children were not because this mother was this woman who was really like the cauldron, bubble, boil in trouble.
Exactly.
But it was really that it was the father, and that's why I think it comes in.
And that's vitally important, and the testimony here is that there was no solicitation by this supposedly, according to the defense, grifter mother. When we return, where the DA sees sadness, the defense sees, of course, something more sinister, and later, the accuser's brother pulls a knife. Stay with us.
Reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Under questioning from Assistant DA Ron Zonin, LA weatherman and comedian Fritz Coleman continues to describe the accuser's family as needy rather than greedy. Here's what the jury heard according to the courtroom transcripts.
Do you remember any other occasion where you may have seen the mother of Gavin's mom?
I saw Gavin's mom a total of 3 times in my whole experience with the family. One was when she came to pick up the children at the end of the comedy camp. The other time was when we delivered the presents to her house. And the last time was my final visit to see Gavin in the hospital after his first bout. She came in toward the end of my visit there, and I hadn't seen her. I think the legend was that because David was not working and staying with Gavin, she was working all the time. So they were never at the hospital at the same time. However, my last visit, she came in at the end, and that was it. And that was a total of a half hour.
Do you remember anything unusual about your conversations with her at all?
No.
Did she ever solicit money from you?
No.
Did she ever ask you to do anything on her behalf or on behalf of her family?
No.
Was there anything at any time inappropriate about her behavior with you?
No.
Oh, if you could hear the objections coming from Howard Weitzman. Next, defense attorney Tom Mesro launches his cross-examination, and to Howard's pleasure and nobody else's surprise, he suggests the accuser's mother had her own agenda.
Mr. Coleman, did you ever authorize Janet to tell the Los Angeles Police Department that you were going to help her in a domestic violence case against her ex-husband, David?
Never.
Did you ever learn that she had told the Los Angeles Police Department, Fritz Coleman, Kobe Bryant, and Michael Jackson are going to help me in my case against my husband?
Yes, I did.
Where did you learn that?
I learned it from a New York Daily News reporter who was calling me to get comments about this particular case.
And did you respond?
I said I knew nothing about it.
So you never had a discussion with her about that?
No.
You never authorized her to use your name, correct?
No.
Have you ever authorized Janet to use your name in any lawsuit?
No.
All right, Howard, you got what you were thinking about, I suppose.
Well, By the way, not to my great pleasure. I think it was.
Yeah, I didn't mean that seriously.
I think it was
obviously, but
ludicrous that this witness was called. This is longer than he gets on the air every night predicting the weather.
Oh, be nice to Fritz. I like Fritz.
Come
So do I.
on, no,
He's
but
my
seriously.
weatherman. No.
Mine too.
Let me make this point. So she didn't ask money. She just used his name and his fame with respect to lawsuits and with LAPD.
So she had a different
she
con
still
with
used
him.
them.
That's the question.
Right.
Let's be clear and let's be legally specific for the benefit of those non-lawyers watching this. It hasn't been proven yet that she used his name. It's simply a question. But as Ricky always points out, and rightfully so, you can't ask a question, even if you're the defense or the prosecutor, if you don't have what the law calls a good faith basis for the question, which means?
Which means that we will see evidence later in the trial that, in fact, this mother used Fritz Coleman's name to get help in a domestic violence case against her ex-husband. So, as Howard just said, it's just another con.
You got to know that
she's
the evidence is
using
out there, Ricky
against
Kleeman.
Fritz Coleman.
But certainly it is good information. I disagree with Howard to this extent that this information, to the extent that she wasn't soliciting, is relevant because that's one of the mainstays,
It's the theory of the defense
exactly.
case. The whole theory of the defense case is this is orchestrated by the mother using her children to set Michael Jackson up as a mark. That's the case.
But so what? They didn't do it against Fritz Coleman. You know, that's all.
Well, I mean, you know,
We've
you got to
Jay
work with
Leno,
what you
we've got
have.
George Lopez,
Well,
we've
we're
got
about
Michael
to
Jackson.
see if we have
We don't
Jay
need
Leno,
Fritz Coleman.
George Lopez, and maybe, at any rate. Now the defense presents Coleman with a laundry list of alleged attempts, as if to channel Sean, by the accuser's family to hit up other celebrities for money.
Okay. Were you aware of any efforts by the to obtain automobiles from other celebrities?
No.
Knew nothing about any attempt to obtain an automobile from Michael Jackson?
I'll object as hearsay.
Sustained.
Were you aware of any other attempts by the family to obtain cash from celebrities other than the fundraiser you're talking about?
I'll object as vague. Which?
I'll go through them. I'll rephrase. Were you ever aware of any attempt by Janet to obtain cash money from any celebrity?
No.
Were you ever aware of David attempting to obtain cash from any celebrity?
May I say that I had heard conversation about him having done that. I don't know if it works in this case. There were some stories that he had approached George Lopez and was David, and was fairly persistent about it, raising George's anger. Again, this is hearsay. I heard this third-person rumor. But there were conversations around the Laugh Factory that he, in fact, had become a problem with George Lopez.
Were you ever aware of Gavin calling Jay Leno on the phone to ask for money?
No.
Assumes facts not in evidence. Objection.
All right, the answer is in no. And next question.
Okay. Did you ever hear of Janet approaching Mr. Leno for money?
Objection. Assuming facts not in evidence.
Calls for hearsay. Sustained.
To your knowledge, was Janet approaching any other comedian and asking for money at the same time that you were making efforts to raise funds for the family?
No.
All right, then we go on to cross-examination, then back to redirect, and the defense and the prosecution play everyone's favorite game, ping pong, with this testimony.
You did visit the hospital a number of times to see Gavin, right?
Yes.
And you did, on one of your visits, see a huge gift package from Michael Jackson, right?
Yes, that was my final visit.
Please, describe what that basket looked like, if you can.
It looked like a huge box that had a number of gifts in it. I didn't really look closely at it, but I remember Gavin beaming that it was a gift from Michael. I said, wow, that's phenomenal.
So Gavin told you it came from Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Do you recall receiving any cards from the...
I think I did. I think I received a thank you note after the Christmas gifts were given.
Do you recall what kind of words were on that thank you note?
No, nothing dramatic.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Counsel?
Mr. Coleman, the thank you note that you received, was there anything inappropriate written on it?
No.
Was there anything that caused you to sit back and be concerned?
No.
But, Ricky Kleeman, on that thank you note were the words that has become the refrain for this defense team. gratuitous words, kind words with respect to this family and back and forth between Michael Jackson and the family.
Well, I think what the defense is trying to show is that the words that came from the mother and the children that thanked Michael Jackson for being so wonderful and calling him Daddy Michael were there as a con, versus the fact that they may have been sincere. Here, I go back and agree with Sean and Howard. The fact that nothing ever happened is not proof that something did happen in another occasion.
Certainly, but, and also to take off on your point, Howard, the idea that there were kind words, and perhaps those kind words were setting up a con for Michael Jackson. Perhaps those kind words were actually just kind words and sincere, and later, according to the defense, things changed for this family.
I think that's the way the testimony has come out. I don't think there's any question at this point that Gavin was sincere and thankful Michael Jackson sent him a gift. Of
course.
I don't see the relevance, Ricky and I disagree, with almost 99% of this testimony.
Okay, what's the 1% you do see relevance with?
Well, the 1% I see is that there was a benefit for this kid, which kind of corroborates some of the earlier testimony, because there was a question as to whether or not the benefit was real and they made anything out of it. And Fritz Coleman lends some credibility to that. Other than that, this should have been a short weather forecast.
Oh, wow. I thought I was one
Another sunny day in Southern California.
I know they're on a roll today. Still ahead, kids and my panel run wild in Pinocchio's Pleasure Land. Actually, they stay here. We'll talk about the kids when we return. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Next up, Jackson's former housekeeper, Kiki Fournier, airs some dirty laundry. According to the courtroom transcripts, here's how she responded to questions by Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss.
And going back to my last question, can you tell us how often children would be overnight guests at Neverland without their parents?
Objection. Foundation and vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
They were there quite a bit without their parents.
How are the children treated at Neverland?
Objection. Vague.
Overruled.
Like any child wants to be treated.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, like you could watch movies, you could watch videos, play video games, eat whatever you want to eat, candy, stay up as late as you want, ride amusement rides, so...
Okay, are there rules?
Not really.
Is there discipline?
Objection. Vague and foundation.
Are the children disciplined is the question.
Same objection.
Overruled. You may answer.
Well, I mean, there's the employees who would frequently interfere with their fun sometimes and tell them it was enough, but, I mean... As far as parents go, no.
Would Mr. Jackson, based upon your personal experience, discipline the children?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, tell me about it.
Like, if they got too rowdy at the dinner table, and sometimes I want to say practically have a food fight or something, but he would tell them to behave, kind of stuff like that, and tell them, you know, if they would get into candy-throwing fights in the theater, and, you know, he was upset about that, and he would, you know... tell them to stop it, or, you know.
Did he himself ever engage in that type of conduct?
I never saw that in the theater with Mr. Jackson.
My question is, you've talked about Mr. Jackson stepping in when he felt that things have gone too far with the children's behavior in terms of discipline, this type of thing. My question is, can you characterize the degree of latitude that he would give children who were guests on the ranch in terms of when he would step in, when discipline, when authority would be provided for these children?
Objection. Compound and vague.
It's compound. Sustained.
I'll strike authority from the question. So, same question. When would he step in and discipline these children in terms of scope? How far would he let them go?
Same objection. Compound.
Overruled.
Sometimes they would get pretty rowdy. And he would, more frequently than not, they would be much more rowdy, you know. And he did let them have, you know, a free hand, so to say, that they could get pretty rambunctious sometimes.
Okay, and the kids are Michael Jackson's? No, they're their parents' kids, and their parents, I think, were there most of the time. But I digress. Next, was the accuser always a perfect house guest, or did he wear out his welcome?
Do you know Gavin and Star?
Yes.
How do you know them?
When I was working at Neverland?
Okay, were they guests of Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Did you observe that behavior change in Gavin and Star while they were at Neverland?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Gavin was always really polite with me, and it just, I was surprised when I went to go clean his room sometimes that he shared with his brother Star that it was just, I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess, and just for whatever reason, it was a mess.
Okay, and was this something that changed during the time that they were at Neverland?
Yes.
In other words, their room, the room that you had to clean up.
Yes, because in the beginning it wasn't like that.
Did some of these children return as guests on more than one occasion?
Yes.
During your employment, going back to the big time frame during your employment at Neverland, did you ever observe Mr. Jackson to form a special, any especially close relationship with these children?
Yes.
Did he pick some kids over other kids to spend his time with and focus his attentions on?
Yes.
Do you remember any of their names?
Objection. Vague as to time.
Over your 10-year period?
Yes.
Relevance, foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
Well, he had, some of his buddies were like Brett, Little Michael.
I'm going to object based on the court's ruling of 1108.
I can go to sidebar on this, Your Honor. We're not going any further than this.
I'll hold you to that.
All right, okay, go ahead.
Little Michael, his name was Omar. Frank Cassio, Aldo Cassio, I think Dominic. I get the two confused.
Is Dominic a Cassio as well?
Yes.
Is that one of Frank's brothers?
Yes.
Is Aldo one of Frank's brothers?
Yes.
Any other names?
Like Gavin was another person that he really took in. Macaulay Culkin. I can't really think of anybody else right now.
But Sean, this witness does go on to discuss some other children. That's going to be the subject of emotion. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But for now, this testimony introduces those unindicted co-conspirators again.
Yes, and what's interesting is that one of them, or two of them who are mentioned, are relatives of one of the unindicted co-conspirators, and you have to wonder, would he allow for impropriety to go on with his own relatives?
Yeah.
This is a kid who's prominently featured, or two kids prominently featured, and apparently nothing happened with them.
Well, or we don't know, but again, that's going to be something that's going to play
it.
itself out, though. Howard, what's your take on this testimony?
My take is, I guess they wanted to say there were a bunch of children that stayed at Neverland, and some of them overnight, a fact that everybody in the world, or almost everybody in the world, is aware of.
Now, what about this issue, Ricky, about the kids' behavior? This is something that, as a parent, just gets me, folks. I think that...
I know, is Michael the disciplinarian? I mean, please.
Yeah.
Please. Plus the fact, this is really Neverland. It is. I mean, this is where kids go and they run wild and they go on the rides and they have fun and they eat candy and they throw popcorn and they're being kids.
Exactly.
This is a child's paradise.
And it brings up the other issue. Will this jury be incensed by the fact that parents are allowing their kids to run wild and or be exposed to a Michael Jackson who is reputed to be a little strange?
And let me ask you two prosecutors something. Is the implication
one
about
prosecutor, one friend of a prosecutor.
I just do this for the sake of advocacy.
She plays one on television.
Is the implication about the room being clean initially and then not being clean later that the molestation occurred and this is how it impacted him, that now he's no longer a room cleaner?
Well, I mean, if you phrase it that way, of course, it's ridiculous. But the implication is that the behavior got worse and worse at the time of the molestation.
And the reason why the behavior got worse and worse is because of the lack of discipline imposed by Michael Jackson. Oh, come on, Tom Stetton. I don't know about that one. But now, Assistant DA Auchincloss questions the witness about the so-called Jesus juice and the children being under the influence.
You said it happened. You couldn't characterize exactly how many times. Was it more than 2, more than 3? Can you help me out with a little more specifics?
3 to 4 times.
Okay. Do you remember any specific instances?
One time when I was serving them dinner, they appeared to be intoxicated.
All right, what time frame are we talking about?
This would be in September of 2003.
How many children were at the dinner table?
4 or 5.
Was Mr. Jackson at the dinner table?
Yes.
Were there any adults at the dinner table?
No.
And of the 4 or 5 children, how many of them appeared to be intoxicated?
At least 3 of them.
Do you know where those children were immediately before dinner?
I think they were at the ranch house.
And what do you base that upon?
Because you kind of can keep tabs about where everybody's at. Because you have certain duties you have to do, like clean the rooms when the guests are out and about. So you kind of keep tabs, you know, if they're in the amusement park or the theater, so.
Next, out-of-control kids, underage drinking, and no authority figure in sight. The King of Pop's former housekeeper coined a new nickname for Neverland Ranch.
Have you ever heard the term Pinocchio's Pleasure Island?
Yes.
Objection, leading.
Overruled. She said yes. Go ahead.
Where did that term come from?
The story of Pinocchio.
But I mean the phrase Pinocchio's Pleasure Island, where did that come from?
I believe I said that.
And what did you say that in reference to?
Objection, relevance 352. Foundation, leading, move to strike, end opinion.
Overruled.
With the absence of an authority figure, these children became wild. And without their parents there, it became like Pinocchio's Pleasure Island sometimes.
Neverland did?
Yes.
All right, Sean, Pinocchio's Pleasure Island, some rough testimony for 3 kids apparently intoxicated at Michael Jackson's table.
Yes, that's very bad and very important testimony. I don't understand the point of the Pinocchio's Pleasure Island. Obviously, the prosecutor thinks it's cute and clever and wants to make sure she gets that out there.
Well, I guess if you go back into the story of Pinocchio, but let's not even go there. Howard, let me hold your feet to the fire. 3 kids intoxicated at Michael Jackson's table. Come on.
The only Pinocchio story I remember is making up stories. The intoxication is bad because it shows Michael is giving alcohol to minors.
Or does it? When we get to the cross-examination, I don't want to reveal too much too soon,
it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different when we get to the cross. But there is an atmosphere here that is being built by the prosecutor and this witness that really starts to sound not like Neverland, but starts to sound like the bad part, which is the Lost Boys getting out of control, or if we take it into literary world, like Lord of the Flies.
And that's a very good point. And the idea that, well, actually, let me ask a different question, Howard. Whenever you have someone who's closely associated with a defendant, there's always a judgment and a temperature taking, if you will. Whose side is this witness on? Whose side is this housekeeper on? Is she still loyal to Michael Jackson? Do you sense that from what we've heard?
Here's what I sense. She's up there just trying to tell what she recollects. I don't think she has loyalty one way or the other.
All right. Well, that's going to be something that this jury takes into consideration. When we return, Jackson's housekeeper faces a boy with a knife. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. On cross-examination, defense attorney Tom Mesereau warms up with a walk through the Neverland menagerie. Here's how Michael Jackson's former housekeeper, Kiki Fournier, responded to his questions, according to the courtroom transcripts.
And you have seen these children from time to time be pretty rambunctious or wild, right?
Yes.
You've seen them be a little wild on the rides, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen them go a little crazy when the elephants come walking through the property, right?
Yes.
You've seen sometimes the camel comes walking out with a zookeeper, and the children all love that, right?
Yes.
You've been... have you seen the children go to the zoo and go from area to see the alpacas and the giraffes and the tiger and the chimps and all of that?
Yes.
And you've seen children at times get out of line, haven't you?
Yes.
They start throwing things, right?
Yes.
You've seen kids throw stuff from the rides, right?
Yes.
Next, can an unmade bed and a messy room help this defense case?
Okay. The prosecutor for the government asked you a question about children not staying in their assigned rooms. Remember that?
Yes.
And you said something to the effect that sometimes a child would have a room, I imagine, in the guest units, right?
Yes.
And you would see the bed not made, right?
Do you mean not used or not made?
Pardon me, not made. Let me strike that. Wrong choice of words. You would sometimes come in and see a room that just didn't appear to be used, right?
Yes.
And I think what the government prosecutor was suggesting was the kids must have been somewhere during the evening, right?
Yes.
But I'm curious. You said that you looked at Gavin's room and it often was a mess, right?
Toward the end, yes.
Suggesting that Gavin was staying in the room, right?
I believe it was he and his brother that were staying in there.
And they made a real mess out of that room, didn't they?
Yes.
Quite often, didn't they?
Toward the end, yes.
All right, and one of my varied attempts at misdirection, let me go in a totally different direction about this testimony. You defense attorneys love to use the term the government when trying to set up the prosecution. Now, that plays pretty well most of the time, but post 9/11, in this terrorism-laden society with respect to at least our consciousness about it, does that phrase backfire now on the defense?
It depends on where you are.
No, I don't think it backfires if part of the defense theory is the rush to judgment and Snedden's own personal vendetta as the government prosecutor. I don't think so. I think Mesereau is very purposefully using these words
Sure, he's purposefully using it, but you know, my point is that this is such a defense mainstay. I don't know if they teach you this in defense school or something to say the government.
But one of the things, James, that we have to look at is where this trial is being held. This is in Santa Maria. It is a very conservative county.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Tom Mesereau, who is one of the best lawyers we could ever watch. Yeah. Tom Mesereau is someone who has studied this jury, so he has to have some thought that there are some people on this jury who will react exactly as Sean is talking about.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the substance of this testimony, Howard. With respect to Gavin's room, what does that get the defense?
Well, what it gets the defense is this. If he was in the room near the end of his stay, which is the implication, the inference from the testimony, and that's when these episodes were supposed to have taken place, and he was supposed to have stayed overnight in Michael's room, I think she impeaches or at least casts some doubt on the credibility of his story. That's the purpose of the cross-examination, and this is a witness who I believe does not favor either side. She's just telling it like she remembers.
It seems that she may be trying to help Michael Jackson out of some affinity, but she's answering the questions pretty straight up. Now, the oh-so-skilled Tom Mesereau ups the ante.
Now, when you say you learned that they were becoming demanding, could you tell the jury what you mean?
Well, every night we'd make dinner, and he always wanted something other than what was made for dinner.
Who was this now?
Star.
Would make demands on you personally?
Yeah. They'd want certain kinds of foods made at certain times, and usually it was chicken noodle soup, which wasn't that difficult, but...
would get you upset at those demands?
Honestly, I got irritated sometimes because of the demand. There was so much to do. And when the kids got a little ornery, it was a lot. It really was. And I felt like there was no respect.
And they seemed to sort of get very spoiled there at some point, didn't they?
Yes.
And weren't there complaints about their throwing candy?
Yes.
There were complaints about their throwing objects from the amusement rides?
Yes.
There were complaints from other employees that they were almost acting like they owned the place.
I don't remember that one, but I know that they were getting a little ornery.
Do you remember Star pulling a knife on you in the kitchen?
Yes.
Approximately when did Star pull a knife on you in the kitchen?
Do you mean about what month it was?
Month or year, if you remember.
Well, it was during that time period between, I want to say it's like February, I think.
And when Star pulled a knife on you in the kitchen, were you preparing food?
I was doing the dishes.
Okay. And was he trying to cook in the kitchen?
Yes.
A knife, Ricky Kleeman, that sounds kind of serious.
I think it is serious. Even if it was a joke, it is serious to have a child put a knife in your back or in your front or any other part of your body. I mean, there's one thing is play. It's said that this was as he was trying to cook in the kitchen. This is not a pretty picture, even if she wants to toss it off, and it plays right into Mesereau's hands of saying that these little boys were monsters.
Now, does it now put, Sean, squarely in front of this jury the responsibility of the parents, or lack thereof, in this situation.
Yes, it does. And also, I think hearing about this behavior, you sort of hearken back to the testimony about the boys in school or Gavin in school
the
being
disciplinary problems we heard
disruptive,
about.
disciplinary problems, going to the dean, getting sent out of school. This really seems to be another side of Gavin.
It does. Now, Howard, as you pointed out a moment ago, and as we have observed, we expect to see an expert say on this stand for the prosecution, look, kids start to act out when they've been traumatized, like after a molestation.
Yes, but this is Starr, we have to remember. So it has to be Starr witnessing the molestation who then, acts out and pulls out the knife.
I'll tell you what I found most interesting about this testimony. Obviously, this lady told someone about the incident before. She thought it was serious enough to repeat it. It obviously bothered her and concerned her.
And that's got to be something that Mesereau will probably, and we're about to see, takes a lot further. Still ahead, was Michael Jackson only a little naughty and way too nice? Plus, more on the brother with the knife. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Defense attorney Tom Mesereau gets in his final shots on cross-examination of Michael Jackson's former housekeeper. Here's what the jury heard, according to the courtroom transcripts.
Do you think he's too nice to a lot of people who visit Neverland?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes I got a little concerned, but it's not my place.
Okay. You thought he was being too generous and nice to visitors, right?
Yes, and sometimes, yes.
Okay, when did you notice the children becoming so destructive?
Towards the end of their stay, in the beginning of 2003.
The beginning of 2003?
Yeah, towards the end of their stay, in the beginning 2003.
Now on redirect examination, Assistant DA Auchincloss cleans up, or at least attempts to, the mess in the kitchen.
You said that Starr pulled a knife on you in the kitchen.
Yes.
All right, did you feel threatened?
No.
You're smiling.
Well, I mean, I didn't feel comfortable about it. Who wants a knife in your back, but...
Was it your impression that Starr was joking with you?
Yes. I thought he was joking and trying to assert some sort of authority.
All right, he didn't hurt you with a knife?
No.
I don't care if he was joking. Did you feel threatened? And I think that, I don't know, maybe she has some affinity for these kids where she's trying to downplay whether or not she felt threatened, but she says, I didn't feel uncomfortable. That's enough, isn't it?
She's just trying to be honest. She's just trying to be honest. Clearly it bothered her, or we wouldn't know about the incident.
Sure.
And to me,
and she acknowledges
that's the
that
key
with,
here.
I didn't feel comfortable.
And
so what's this business about? He's trying to assert some authority.
Exactly.
How does that play?
Exactly. That's the whole thing. I mean, these kids, they seem to be out of control.
And they could be out of control simply because you don't have a mother that is minding them.
And that, again, is going to be one of the big points,
Which is separate and apart from the question of whether or not Gavin was molested and whether or not Starr observed it.
Or is it?
What is very important about the cross-examination that Mesereau uses on this witness, the children become destructive at the end of their stay, after the plan was hatched, and they didn't care whether or not Michael Jackson liked them or not.
And one
that's
of the
the
points,
inference here.
I don't think they know the plan was hatched. Don't you think that the whole thing is...
I think the boys know the plan was hatched.
If there was a plan.
They're in the middle of it. If there was a plan.
Correct. Okay, now, but let's go to another point, the timeline, Sean, on one of our favorite topics.
Yeah.
We don't really know when these incidents happen in time with respect to the molestation, if indeed that happened,
And
the alleged molestation.
I continue to say that that's a problem the prosecution is having. It's very hard to follow this story. What are they saying? What is the prosecution theory? The timeline is of critical importance, and we don't get a sense of it.
All right, let's go around the horn. How did this day go for prosecution and defense? Who wants to start?
Go ahead, Sean,
okay.
you start.
It's just much ado about nothing. I don't understand why the judge allowed all of this testimony. I don't understand why the defense didn't object more to it. I'm talking about the entire day. It's just a bunch of
Ricky?
nothing.
Well, I think if you listen to the press reports of the whole day, it sounds like there was a little bit too much fun and frolic and a little bit too much pornography and a little bit too much drinking, which then means it was a prosecution day.
Howard?
Well, a little too much adult material, I know Ricky meant to say.
Yes, indeed.
I was just a lawyer. It was a mistake.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. That's it for our Friday. Don't forget, we have a 1-hour wrap-up edition for our weekend special on the Michael Jackson trial coverage starting tomorrow, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., and it's only on E!